Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. Here is your host.
Hey creatives, this is Roland and welcome to the Writer's Creative Space, a space where authors and aspiring authors can get inspiration, advice, tips, and encouragement on their self-publishing journey. This is episode 5 and today I am speaking to my good friend Austin Pandawana, who is the author of Out of the Ashes, a book that helps entrepreneurs rise up above their failures and mistakes in business to achieve success. Now, this is my very first interview and I really enjoyed our talk and appreciated his transparency and openness to share his successes, his failures, his mistakes, and how all that birthed his book. Now, being taught to never waste an experience, he has taken what he has learned and is helping people rise up out of the ashes, literally. His passion is to help people who have fallen and made mistakes in business and who are in despair or who are discouraged and who think that their business career is over, but his message is no, that the journey continues, that there is hope, that you can continue, that you have another chance, and so you have an opportunity to rise up out of the ashes, and I really love that. So as we talked about all that, we also got into the process of writing a book, and he talks about the challenges he faced and also the victories. Towards the end of the conversation, we also talk a bit about the future of writing for African authors. And I really enjoyed that part because Austin had some really encouraging thoughts to share. The future is truly bright for African authors is how I would sum up what he had to say about the future for African authors, because as he lives in Africa, I live in Africa, and it's definitely something to talk about. Like, is there hope? Is there a future? Do we have a chance? And for sure, we have a chance. So, with that said, I am not going to be talking about anything else. There's no news I'm going to be sharing today because I want to get straight into the interview. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into the interview. Austin, how are you?
I am great. I'm blessed. I'm doing well. Thanks, Roland. Good to see you.
You too, Austin. So tell me about yourself, because I know when we met studying ministry, you helped me out. Well, you joined the team for visual arts, banners, and I know that you are head boy in PE. But just give me more background from there, like what happened, what have you been doing, so we can just give context to the guys who are listening.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So like you said, you and I met the Visual Arts Ministry in Celebration. I had been attending Celebration. Well, my first encounter was in the year 2000, actually. Yes, my sister, who was working at Compassion Ministries and was working in children's ministry at the time, invited me over for the Jehoshaphat's camp at Mbizi Game Lodge. And I remember it very well. I was there with, Simba, Ben Dushel, and there was an old lady by the name of Auntie Lynn, I don't know, and Uncle Don. I'm not sure.
I think I remember them.
Yeah. But they made such an imprint on my heart. It's amazing how someone can speak such simple words to you, but they mean so much. Just telling you how much they think you're the best. And I know I'm going on a bit, but
no, but it's fine.
The connection is there. So just fast forward through the years, I did remain connected to the ministry. And when I finished high school, I went over for a gap year in Tasmania, and then I came back, and that's when I rejoined ministry, but with you guys. And since then, I left to pursue my legal studies here in South Africa.
Yeah.
And in the process of that, I went from coaching private cricket in Centurion, just to get myself started and finding my way through my law degree. Through the grace of God, I got a position in a corporate called Renasa Insurance Company. And, after that, that's when the desire to get into business came up in me as a result of my connection to my father in the faith. That's how I came to run Tzedakah Meat Market, and that is the butchery or the business that I write about in my book. So that's pretty much it, I suppose, in a nutshell.
Okay, so great. So let's then talk about your book. So how did that come about? What made you decide to write your book?
Genetics, spiritual genetics. My father, the faith is he runs a publishing company. He's an author of over 20 books himself. And one of the things he said to me after the business failed, he said, "Son, never waste an experience." So he said, write about it. But he was very casual though.
Yeah.
But sometimes when a man of God speaks, they may joke or they may seem to be casual. But if something resonates as the voice of God to you, you can run with it, obey, and give birth to something. So, it had been a couple of years since the butchery had actually closed down. So I didn't write about it immediately, but the experiences of it and what I went through remained so imprinted on my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the passion to then tell the story, share it with others, how I went through this journey of going into business, not well equipped enough, but the recovery from that emotional setback, and teaching others how they can avoid similar mistakes and what are the sort of things that they can do to enhance their prospects of success when they decide that they actually want to go into business.
Okay, so tell me, how did you then overcome that obstacle of, okay, here you are, you've decided to write a book and you hadn't written before. So how did you overcome that obstacle of, okay, so yes, I don't have any experience with writing a book, but I'm still going to write a book. How did you overcome that? And how, what are the steps that you took in that whole process of just becoming an author?
For me, I just wrote, man. I just started. But the starting process of it, look, I'm not going to say I had absolutely no, or I hadn't done any kind of research or whatever. I had, like the Bible says, who begins to build unless they know that they've got the ability to finish. And then if you don't finish, then people say this guy began to build and he didn't manage to finish. So I did consult with my spiritual dad, but also there was Dr. Keith Johnson, who runs Destiny College International, and he's a speaker on leadership and confidence. He came and he did an author's workshop, and he just said, listen, when you're writing, people connect emotionally quite easily. So emotions are things that get people to connect without too much struggling. You can be mechanical, you can try and bring principles forward, but that's why songs are so catchy, because they appeal to emotions.
Yeah.
So he said, if you're putting something on paper that is genuine and authentic, it will come through the pages. So for me, I wasn't trying to write a book for the sake of writing a book.
Yeah.
So there was purpose behind it. I had a story to tell, and many people do have a story to tell. So I wasn't trying to figure out how to write in a way, but I was letting what was inside of me flow onto pages.
That does. And you also spoke about how you had a story, you had a goal in writing. Would you say that actually helped you tons and actually helped the process a lot easier when you have that, the goal, the vision, the idea, even if you don't have the skill or the expertise? Would you say that having that direction, that vision actually is the important and the critical part of writing a book?
Absolutely. You can have all the skill you want. How many professors in linguistics are there out there? But they're not necessarily writing books, And if you've just got, if your book has got a message, and you're looking to leave legacy, already that qualifies you or puts you in a position to produce something that will have the desired impact. So having a vision, like what is the end goal of me writing this? Who do I wish to speak to? What do I wish the outcome to be if someone encounters this book? What is that person supposed to gain, know, experience as a result of getting into contact with my writing? So once you have that, you've got the why. I mean, the how then becomes much simpler.
I love that. I love that. Okay, and let's talk about the book. So you said the book is called Out of the Ashes. So talk to me about the title. What does it mean, and why does it resonate so deeply with you?
So Out of the Ashes, it's that story about failing and coming back again. You at at the back of my book, as a precursor, I write there. I say, have you ever felt like your dreams have gone up in flames? All that you have are ashes and remnants of something that felt so dear. In that moment, when all seems lost, there is yet another opportunity to rise up again and fulfill destiny. The great Napoleon Hill was quoted as saying, "Every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. Despite what might have happened in the past, what you do in the present will have a direct impact on the future." So for me, that statement from Napoleon Hill,
Yes.
failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. Don't ever feel like because you failed, that's the end of the road. We either win or we learn. We don't lose.
Nice.
So writing this book for me was a way to say to people, you can come out of the ashes. You might have burnt. You might have felt like, I'm never going to do this again. You might have felt like this is the end of the road for me. But you have that ability, you have the grace from God to come up out of those ashes of disappointment, hurt, failure, and press on to become what you see yourself becoming and what God has called you to be.
Right. So now also talk to me about, so since you listened to this desire that you had to write a book and everything, and since it was done, how has the response been since you've written the book? Like, have you had people come back to you and tell you how it impacted them? So yeah, talk to me about the response. How has the response been?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, immediately afterwards, I had one person close to me who read the book and said, "Wow, Austin, this feels like a Stephen R. Covey type of book."
Wow, nice.
Yeah, but many people have come back and said, "You know what? I didn't know this was happening in your life, but it's the vulnerability you've shown whilst writing this book has shown a completely different side to me, and I've gained a lot of respect." And other people came back and said, "This is exactly what I needed."
Sure. Wow.
I got a guy who does business consultancy, and he said he recommends this as a manual for every entrepreneur, especially those starting out for the first time. He says you cannot or should not begin a business without reading this book, because
Wow.
it will show you the sort of things that you need to know about what you're getting yourself into. And in this advent of COVID and people starting to look for extra income, ways to free themselves from jobs that have no security, and this generation in general, even before COVID, people wanting to be their own boss.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of glamour or things that appear amazing, especially when you're on social media. But very few people, even those who are encouraging people to get into business, very few of them are there to hold your hand through the practicalities, what we call the business of running a business. Knowing the accounting side of things, compliance side of things. And I know that tends to apply even more so as you go deeper, and depending on the size and the complexity of the business. But I don't think anyone really ever starts with mediocrity in mind for a lot of things. Everyone wants a success story. You're going to get into business because you've got financial goals. There's no, unless it's an NGO that's got funding from somewhere or whatever. But generally, if you're going into business and it's actually a commandment from God, you must profit. Profitability is a godly thing. But profitability is something that it's a skill that you learn. There's so many moving parts that you have to come to terms with, and have the ability to navigate the challenges that come with being in business, especially for a lot of people who aren't starting with huge hordes of capital or whatever the case might be. There are many stumbling blocks. With the way the world has gone, there are even more monopolies. There are less and less players in many, many fields because the big companies keep gobbling it up. I was laughing. I remember, I know I'm talking a lot here now.
No, keep on. Yeah.
One of the big supermarkets that used to specialize purely in homeware, items, kitchen things, and hardware in a sense. And they're part of the Walmart group. I just don't want to name them, but at the time when I was in running my butchery, they started a meat section, and what would happen at the end of the month is they made deals with farmers, with chicken farmers, for fresh chicken. And the thing is, there's a shortage of supply of fresh chicken produced in South Africa. That's why a lot of frozen stuff gets imported from Brazil and those kind of places. But the point I'm trying to make is they would make contracts with farmers to say, by the end of the month, all your chickens are ours. So they would bulk up on the chicken and sell it at ridiculously cheap prices. Obviously, that's a pull factor for many clients. But when you're running a small butchery down the corner there somewhere, you don't have the meat supply anymore. And that shortage forces the price of whatever else is left to go up through the roof, and you lose clients through things like so. Having knowledge of some of those things, depending on what field you're in, the fact that there are these big monopolies, whatever, puts you in a position of advantage. So I learned very quickly that, in order to run a successful butchery, and many butcheries are like that now, you have to have control over some of the line items. Either you have very big buying power, so you've got a chain of butcheries, so you can kind of dictate in a way the price at which you purchase your stock, or you're actually in charge of one of your line items. So maybe you're a chicken farmer, so you're not dependent on anyone to provide your chicken. So you always got a constant stock of that. People can then come and purchase pork, beef, whatever it is as an aside in a way, but that you've got control over the price of your chicken. That's your stock item. That's your people come to you because they know they can get good quality chicken here. A lot of Afrikaner guys have got farms, so they've got their own cattle. So those are some of the things. But I'm going into great detail here, but I'm just trying to demonstrate that you have to be aware of the finer details. And reading a book like the one I wrote will open up your eyes to what are the real obstacles that you have to overcome.
Okay. Let's also talk about you talked about your books, really about also inspiring people from failure to get to a place of being a winner and succeeding. So if someone has failed, like for example, I'm thinking like I had a catering company, and I started that, and obviously then I failed, and that was hard. So what would you recommend, like when people are in that low place where like they feel like, man, I don't have any more ideas, like this is my one and only thing, how am I gonna like move on from here? What would you advise people to do when they're at the bottom and get out of that, like especially with your mindset? And like, because we're, like you're saying, there's some guys who don't have the capital just to start a new business, and some of them are even struggling with the mindset, like they think they're failures, and so anything I start, it's not going to win. It's not going to be like profitable. So what's your encouragement to those kind of people? Like, how do they rise up out of the ashes from that?
Giving yourself the opportunity, or first of all, don't allow that failure to define who you are, right? Okay. So you are not that failure. That's what you need to understand. Your gifts, your skills, your talents are not diminished because you ran an enterprise that failed. And otherwise, no one else would do it, So to separate the two, you are not your failures, okay? And then having that sort of mentality, you need to go back, ask why, ask yourself the questions, why? Okay, what went wrong? If you can take a step back and look, I know it's a cliche, but, going back to the drawing board,
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what is it that I did wrong? What could I have done better? Did I have the right partners? Was my stocking not correct? Or, I mean, I'm taking your example for your catering business, for
Yeah.
example. Were you stretched in terms of pricing? Were you not charging people enough? All those kind of constraints. And the beauty about it is failure is an opportunity to start again smartly.
Nice.
So if you were to do your catering again, it's obvious, or at least if you learned something, it's obvious that there are certain things that you're going to have to change. I know, for example, one of the major problems I had was I did deliveries for free, and I neglected how the cost of fuel,
Yeah.
the cost of me not being in my shop at a critical time,
Yes.
and when you're in a butchery, you can have stuff that you think are as honest as whatever, but at the end of the day, my stock wasn't balancing with my cash and my, but you don't have controls over that. I spent a great deal of time out of the shop either picking up stock or dropping off orders. And I it was detrimental to the business.
Yeah.
So if I was to do that again, already there's so many things that you can pick up and say, I did this incorrectly, I did that incorrectly. So when you do it again, of a surety, you're going to do it better. You're going to have the correct people around you. You're going to eliminate the wrong people. And it is a wonderful tool that I put in my book here. It's a graph that shows the segments, the different segments of a business. From who are your suppliers, who are your partners, what is your target market, how was your distribution going to look? So it's like 9 different categories. So if you put that graph up before you start your business and you start to map out, okay, where am I going to be getting stock? Who are the best partners for that? How is this product going to get to my client? What is my product? Who is my target for my product? And if you've got that clear in your mind, you're able to deliver on a better level. And I gave the example of the company Nespresso. They sell coffee machines, but the coffee machines are not the end game. It's the pods that you make coffee with. Because once you've got the machine, you got to buy the pods.
Yeah.
So, and they push that, man, and they got tons and tons of flavors. And even with the rental guys that rent offices, big coffee machines, that's the end game. They're supplying you the milk. They're supplying. But they know that, okay, my customer is a small office like this. The product is the pods, milk, sugar, this, that, so the money pays itself back, ultimately. So when you know those things, man, you can then, before you start, you already know, okay, if I'm going to go into catering, my target market is high net worth people, whatever.
Wow,
so this is what it's going to take to do catering for high net worth people. They're going to want fancy food, shrimp, this, that. And then you're going to say to yourself, well, maybe I don't have capital upfront. So how is my model going to be on the financing side of things? I'm going to insist on a deposit upfront. Whatever, it's simplistic examples, but the point I'm trying to make, given the short time we have, is you do your research.
Okay.
And then you can start again smart. So you can get up by learning from those errors that you make, and don't beat yourself up about it. There's no time to feel, in a way, sorry for yourself. That's why I said you need to separate the failure from who you are.
I like that. Oh man. So now tell me, with that in mind, especially that, so when you started your book and you were writing it, what challenges did you face in writing the book? Now, because since you decided and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, what are the challenges that you faced writing the book?
So I had a few practical challenges. I had a young daughter. I was working. So to make the time was pretty tough, to be honest. So I had to write at night. And at some point towards the end of, towards the end of the target of my writing, I had to leave the house, go to the church offices, write until midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. then come back, because I needed that time and that separation. But also, I started off writing on a Word document, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I must have been 3,000 words into my book. And by the way, I remember I was just flowing from the heart.
Yeah.
Okay? So I was just writing. And the laptop I was writing on got stolen.
Oh, no. Oh,
so
man.
I lost the first, must have been, I don't know, 2 chapters.
Jeez.
And it was gone,
Oh, man.
And then my spiritual father said, man, why did you do that? You write on Google Docs. Keep it on the cloud.
Yeah. That's a lesson.
Don't do that, man.
Wow.
Don't do that.
Oh, man.
But fortunately, because like I said, it was coming from the heart, I retraced my steps and that. But that was hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, it can derail you because writing sometimes is about momentum. So now you're there, you're writing this thing, you've finally overcome that first obstacle of you've broken through.
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, it's like you've done absolutely nothing.
Then man.
So I literally had to rise out of the ashes.
So now tell me, so you, I'm guessing, are traditionally published, right? So you actually got someone to publish your book.
Yes, because of my connections.
Okay.
It was natural for me to go that route.
All right. So yeah.
And I know for a lot of people, sometimes it's difficult to actually get a publisher. Someone who believes in the story, publish it for you or whatever. But the publisher that I was working through, Faithland Publishers, their vision is to get as much good content out there for people to read. So they're all about books like this that empower people, that uplift people, that have good kingdom principles in them. So, it was automatic in a way that they took my book. Notwithstanding, obviously, I did have to write, in a certain standard. You can't just give whatever. It has to be of good quality. But I must admit, to that end, I didn't struggle. And for those who want to get plugged into a publisher, if they want to go that route, they're more than welcome to contact Faithland Publishers for assistance.
Okay. What we can do is you just give me all the links and I can leave them in the episode notes and all that. Because I wanted to talk also about that, because for me, I have decided to go the self-published route, like in this beginning part, right? And so for guys who are thinking about going your route, the traditional route, and I think you can use both. I think there can be a time where you can go self-publishing and then go traditional, depending on your book, how it sells, or you can do the other way. So it's not an either or. Like you can use both, or you can optional.
Yeah,
so
it's not. No, it's not. Look, I wouldn't. Don't not write because you're thinking you don't have a publisher.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's write the book. And if you want to then go via a publisher and you've got the opportunity and you've got someone who's willing to help, 100%. Otherwise, if you want to do the self-publishing route, obviously you'd know a lot more about that than I do. But in terms of being with a publisher, they'll take you through the steps, help you get an ISBN number, register you with the local library. Depending on the deal that you structure, they'll help you with the book outline. They may or may not help you with the designer, if you want your own designer, or at least certainly I'm speaking from the publisher that I dealt with, right? Because they were very flexible. Their desire was for me to succeed. So they don't even insist on royalties here. It's just a once-off fee for helping you to lay the book out. Then they connect you to their printers. They can help you with marketing if you want. So you can literally customize your quotation with these publishers. They can offer you everything and you can take everything, or they can offer you the bare minimum in terms of just literally the outline and the printing. And then they pass the costs on to you. or you can take bits and pieces out of whatever it is that they have to offer. But they can go down right to marketing for you. They can do social media on your behalf, everything that a publisher in the traditional sense does. It all depends on what your desires are, where you're at with your budget, and all those kind of things.
Wow. Okay. So you've actually answered my question, because I was going to ask you, can you please go through the process of or everything that they go through if you want to go that way? So with that, do you also market the book? Have you got some hold on that, or do they do it completely?
No, I took charge of my own marketing.
Okay.
And so I said, it was, I could have asked them to do it. Obviously, the quotation on that would have differed a bit. And because this was my first book, and I didn't have like a great deal of capital to pour into this particular project at that time, I just decided, and again, the purpose of it was, for me, that this beginning book, yes, it was about passing a message out there, but for me also, the book was an enhancement of my CV. This was, for me, an announcement, you understand? So when I go into platforms, whatever, they say, Austin, the published author of Out of the Ashes, automatically it puts you in a position of authority.
Yeah.
Because when you're an author, it says something about the quality of your thinking. It says something about the clarity of your thinking. It says something about the sort of content that you have inside you as a person. So, regardless of how many copies or whatever that are. So the moment I stand up on a stage and they say, Austin Mpandawana, author of Out of the Ashes, that carries a certain authority about it already. And that's one of the key things that my father said. He said, this becomes a CV. And when I'm sleeping, someone can go onto Facebook or wherever, they'll find the book and it already starts to speak about the sort of person that I am. So it's that was one of the big purposes out there for me. So that's how our marketing strategy was birthed in a way. So I took charge of it, and we did pure online marketing. So as Facebook, Instagram, those are our main channels. But the publisher will give you guidance. If you want to go the traditional mass media way, they can help you with some of that. There's so many options. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tell me also, you talked about I wanted to talk about a bit of how you did your marketing. So you went on Instagram, Facebook as well. Yes. Did you use also email marketing?
Yes. So what would happen is we opened up a ticketing for my launch, a ticketing portal. So obviously, when you go on there, you have to leave your email details and the like. So we were sending direct emails to people who even showed interest in the book and in the launch of the book to remind them, okay, the launch is coming up. This is what the book is about. And it created a buzz. So I'll do Facebook Lives and just talk to people about the book. It's coming up. This is what you can expect in it. I was just whetting the appetite of people. We did a bunch of flyers. So there were countdown flyers, hey, 10 days to go until the launch. We're just creating some excitement. We did some standard flyers and I put them all over. I mean, it was on my WhatsApp status. I got people to put it on their statuses. I created broadcasts, direct message people. Guys, my book. If you came into my space, it was my book.
Yeah.
I literally created a white heat about the book. So at that moment, if you saw me, you saw Out of the Ashes. So
wow. I like that.
I became the brand. Yeah.
I like that. Wow. Tell me about your launch. You said you did tickets?
Yes. So entry to the launch itself was free, but it was a ticketing system. So you booked online, put your details on there. So we knew exactly who to expect, who was coming, for catering purposes. And what I did was I took advantage of relationships, right? So it can cost quite a lot to launch a book in terms of venue, catering, and that kind of thing. So I took advantage of my relationship with my spiritual father. So I used the church auditorium for my launch.
Nice.
There are many people who do mobile cocktails. So it's a group of guys that literally you can hire them. They come to your house if you've got a party or whatever. So they do cocktails. So I said to them, guys, okay, Mine is alcohol free, so you can come through and do some mocktails. They were looking for some exposure, so they came through, and people had lovely, lovely mocktails, mojitos and this and that, fancy drinks. On the front end, nobody knows about that I'm not paying a cent for this, but they loved the welcome drinks.
Wow.
Fancy, they were beautiful. I spoke to Pick and Pay, they gave me drinks. I spoke to Spa, they gave me sandwiches. I spoke to Mug and Bean, they gave me muffins. I spoke to Spur, they gave me a platter. I'm talking,
wow.
I tapped every single relationship that I could so I didn't pay a cent for any of my food, and I had food left over after the launch. People had drinks, as many as they wanted. They couldn't finish them. I had 3 very powerful speakers come through absolutely free of charge to enhance the experience of the book launch. So relationships, man, relationships, like you can't take that. If I tell you, I mean, not a single cent, nothing. I mean, I had South Africa's first ever Black female who owns a fertility center in her name, and the first IVF facility, fully Black owned female in South Africa. She was there at my launch. She was one of the people I interviewed for my book, Relationship.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Jeez. As we come to the end, I've got 2 last questions, and the second last question is about, I'm living Zim and whatever. So I'm talking about African writers. So I want to ask you, so what do you think is the future of African writing and authors? Like, what do you see going ahead for us? Is the opportunity to grow? What are the kind of mindsets we should have? Because when I'll tell you the truth, when I first started, I was like, I tried to subscribe to some of these companies that were in the States, whatever, and of course, being from Zim, they were like, you can't, and because for whatever reason, and at the end you get so discouraged to say, can I really make an impact globally? And that's one of the mindset I to definitely work on, which has got a way better. So these are the kind of things I want to ask. So what do you think is the future for us?
There is never been a better time for African stories to be told, to be written than now.
Yeah.
This is the season, man. This is the time. The stories need to come out. My spiritual father, like I said, apart from the publishing house, he's got a platform called Africa Must Read. So he's got an absolute passion for Africa to read, for Africa's minds to be opened up. But it doesn't take American, European, or whatever other story to open up the minds of Africans. It can come from within. So I say to anyone, whether they're in Zimbabwe, Kenya, Lesotho, Cameroon, it doesn't matter what part of the African continent they are. If you've got a story to tell, man, put it in writing. That is legacy. We want to hear it. We want to see it. We want to read about it. History is determined by the people who've got the ability to write and chronicle whatever it is that's happening at a particular point in time. So we should not take for granted whatever it is that we put in writing, because things that are written down are eternal. So we must not slow down. We must not back down. Let's write. Let's read. Africa has got so much to tell, so much to give, not just to the world, to ourselves, man.
Yeah.
We owe it to ourselves. So there is absolutely no reason for anyone in this continent, no matter where they are, to hold back on writing. Do it.
Okay, so also can you give me the link for that as well, so we can put it in the description for people to go to? Because let's keep on writing. And I was about to end, but you used a word twice, and that was legacy. And I want to briefly, as we're about to end, why do you keep on using that word legacy? So people would know. I want people to get an idea of what you're talking about, legacy.
Yeah, the Bible says a good man leaves inheritance, for his children's children. So it's all about, when you look through history, and I know this might sound political, but when people talk about, white privilege, or they talk about, unfair scales of justice and whatever. All that is all about legacy, right? We trace it back. There are many documentaries now that are showing how Black Americans were systemically excluded from owning properties. Why? Because when a family owns a property, it becomes a base of prosperity. If your parents were to leave you a house, no matter what sort of trouble economically you might be in at that particular moment in time, if you can sober up, or if you've got something that you can hang on to, it's a start. So you're not starting from the bottom. Legacy, it's all about legacy. It's important. So what we're saying here is, we've heard enough stories from America, how they've made it, how they've written their own history. If you look at the war in Vietnam, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the Americans did well in that war. Why? Because it's their people who are writing movies about it. It's their people who are writing books and stories about it, and they're nitpicking success stories. But what book from Vietnam have you seen or heard about that tells you about the war? It's not easily or readily in the public domain. And it's a shame, because I'm not an advocate for socialism or communism, whatever that system of economics that they believe in. But the principle is that if they were in a position where they could write about this, then that's legacy that can be passed on, that gives pride to their people and opens the door for other people around the world to understand and realize that the duty is on us to leave something behind that will define and shape the future of the people that are coming after us. So it's about leaving behind something that lasts forever. That's why I said, if it's written down, it lasts forever. That's the legacy I'm talking about.
Nice.
I might die whenever, but someone, doesn't matter who, I can speak to them through this book.
Nice.
I can give them lessons. This is not lost anymore. You understand?
Yeah.
If someone was to come across this and they've never heard about business or entrepreneurship, and they're stuck and they're, I don't have to be there, but I'll talk to them. I'll guide them. I'll show them how to start a business.
Nice. I like that, because so you're saying that a book will outlive you no matter what. And that is another reason why you should write and not just keep everything stored up. One, you said everyone has a story. Two, that your book will outlive you. And I love that. Okay, cool. So as we end, I want to just, one last thing. Can you just have a word of encouragement for anyone who's wanting to write or who's beginning this journey? Please share a word of encouragement, and then we'll close.
Yeah, I just want to say, you can do it. Even when you come across moments where you feel like the words are not coming out or you're stuck, just keep at it. They keep the end in sight. Like I said, you're not writing only for yourself, but you're writing for, someone out there, or some people out there, certainly. And there's no greater joy than to do something that goes beyond impacting just your own life. And, people are out there who are relying on you to write this book. And it doesn't have to be a self-development book, whatever.
Yeah.
Even if it's fictional.
Yeah.
It can show lessons. It can create the sort of, exposure that somebody out there needs. So don't underestimate, don't underestimate the power of what you're doing. And when you realize the power of what you're doing, I think that should serve as sufficient motivation for you to complete. And we were coming out of a week of prayer and fasting, and actually last night our pastor said, there's an anointing for finishing. So if there's anyone listening, if you're writing a book, I just want you to know that this season there is an anointing for finishing. The Bible says in Isaiah, the Lord does not bring to a point of delivery and does not provide the strength.
Nice.
So the power is there, the anointing is there. You can do it, you can finish it, go for it. We are behind you, we're here for you. We're looking forward to what you're going to give birth to.
Thank you, Winston, on that strong note. And thank you for your time. And also quickly, where can people find your book? Is it digital, or is it the book? How can they find your book?
Most of the copies were physical, but there is an ebook available. Contact me directly via Facebook on our page, Out of the Ashes. There's a link there. And our publishers, www.faithandpublishers.co.za or info@faithlandpublishers.co.za. We can get an e-copy of the book to you straight away.
Okay, thank you for that. And like I said, we'll leave all the links in the description so so that everyone can find your book. But thank you again, Winston, for this time. I really appreciate it. It was good catching up.
Likewise, man. It's a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Wow, that was a great interview, and there was a lot to think about. So, as we come to the end of this podcast, I want to touch on a few points that stood out to me, and I'm going to be touching on 3 main points that I really, really, really loved. So, let's get into it. So, the first point that Winston made was just start. Winston didn't wait to become a pro. He just started writing. And I think this is so important because a lot of us, when we are about to start writing, have all these questions and we think we have to get all this knowledge and we probably have to go to school to get a degree. But that is not the case. Wherever you are right now, just start writing. The learning and the experience will come, but just start. And then point number 2, I loved when you said that, what is your why? What's your message? It's interesting to me that Winston didn't have the skills when he started, but he had a very clear message. He had a vision, and that is what helped him. And he even went on to say that was what pushed him to keep on writing. And that is so important. So it doesn't matter if you don't have the skills or you don't have the experience or the technical ability to write. What is really important as you start is, what is your why? What is your message? And is it clear? Because once you've got that, that's already a huge step being taken in the right direction. So think about that. What is your why? What is your message? Okay. And then the third point that he made is, he says, you are not your failures. Just because you failed doesn't mean you are a failure. When you fall, get back up and keep on going. And man, I really love that because like I shared in the episode and in the interview was, I also had a business and I failed and for a while that defined me and what I could do. But Winston is saying that no. Just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure. You can just try again, just get up and get going. So even for you, if you are in a place where you failed a few times and you think you're a failure, the truth is you are not a failure because you have failed. Just get up and keep on going. And you know what? And there will be a better result. But just don't believe that lie that you're a failure, because you are not. So anyway, with that, we have come to the end of the show. What I will do is post all the links in the episode show notes that Winston shared. And as always, let me know what you thought of the show in the comments down below or on my Facebook page or on my blog. I also have my YouTube channel. So you can reach out to me there. Share this episode with your writing friends or with someone that you know who has fallen and is struggling with failure and disappointment. I believe that this show has a lot of wisdom in it that can help them. So thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.